Hey, welcome to the first session of my game prep videos. This is a collection of little snippets and cuts of me as I prep my monthly game. I am an old school DM. I have been DMing for well over 30 years. I cut my teeth on the original DL1 Dragonlance modules and ran a campaign that lasted for 17 years in total. Part of the reason for that is that we vastly expanded the campaign out beyond its original sort of packaging. In fairness, we ended up with something in the region of 50 to 60 characters that the players themselves created over that period of time. I am also old school DM in that I work mostly by hand, pen and paper. I have recently drifted into using Obsidian, but by and large, even using Obsidian, I still print that out. It's still a pen and paper ultimately at the end. Back in the day, we used to play a campaign over many years, not 5 sessions that they're talking about, 5 or 6 sessions for a campaign as now. I think I was on the back end of 1st edition, so I was 2nd edition AD&D, 3rd edition 3.5. Never played 4th edition. I had a little bit of a break from D&D for a few years, and then I returned with 5th edition. And on our return to 5th edition, the module that was out at the time that I really wanted to get to grips with was the Princes of the Apocalypse. You can see it's got notes in it from then, and we started playing this in 2015, so a year or so after 5th edition had released. And similar to my Dragonlance campaign, the cast of characters have spread far and wide throughout the realms, pursuing other adventures, personal goals that all are set somewhat against the backdrop of the events of the Princes of the Apocalypse. This is the journal of the last, 10 years worth of play, although we did have a couple of years break over lockdown, I guess. But one of the things that I've come to realise is that there's been a huge influx of third-party games, and it makes me want to play through more of these. And so I have to speed up my campaign pacing. So I have spent the last 12 months re-engineering how I prep my games, very much built on the Lazy DM's system. So this is my preamble to a new series of videos that will release over time as I prep my games. My cast of characters, 2 of which are original from 10 years ago, from 2015 when we started, are heading down into the Cult of the Eternal Flame. There is a cast of 6 characters in total, so 4 of the characters are brand new, and 1 player is actually brand new to my gaming table as well. We have a number of new characters. Azutali, who is, now these are really the first time I'm looking at these backgrounds here, is a Yuan-Ti Bolos. Okay, so we have a Yuan-Ti Pureblood. So part of the 8-step process is to take your characters and connect the investment of each character into why they are pursuing the current adventure. I like players to give me a really good background, something that I can make these little connections with. I don't necessarily feel that a character needs to be built exclusively for that particular module, but there does definitely need to be character investment. Why is Azutali going to descend down into the Temple of Elemental Flame and face imminent death? What's driving them? So Azutali is a Yuan-Ti. Now, in my Princes of the Apocalypse campaign, Eliza Dryflagon was in actual fact a Yuan-Ti druid who was performing a terrifying Wicca ritual in which many druids and rangers died, and was kind of the climax of the last iteration of this particular campaign when we last played. It's been about 2 to 3 years since we picked up this particular storyline, so we're heading back into it. Azatuli became a prisoner of Eliza Dryflagon during the weeks and months leading up to the events that transpired at the top of Sumber Hills in Scarlet Moon Hall. Now, obviously, Azatuli is a new character, and that's part of the background that's been written in. Now, Azatuli escaped imprisonment during the assault by the then cast of characters that brought down Eliza Dryflagon's plans and brought an end to the Wicca ritual. What might Azatuli know? What might she be able to reveal in the first session? For that, I'll be digging into my secrets and clues, which we'll get to later. So, Bakar. Now, Bakar is one of the original cast, a half-orc, flame-throwing bagpipe player who really is just out for fame and glory. In our Princes of the Apocalypse, there is an enormous orc horde led by a shaman, a very powerful orc shaman known as Zagu, who has basically taken over the southern area all the way up to Bardroy Inn and controls the portal in Bardroyd Inn. He's currently striking up an alliance with Haon the Destroyer, who is the current prophet of the cult of Howling Hatred, having killed Arisi Kelenoth for her weaknesses. Bakar was kind of entrapped in that scenario with Zagu and the Orc tribes and escaped, but his mother was left there. We had a whole section of campaign around Bardroyd Inn where he did a extraction of his mother. So right now he's got blood feud with basically the cults in their entirety. He knows that there's some big bad guys down in this temple, and basically he wants to get himself a real big meaty weapon to go on to whatever loosely termed heroic acts that he'll take after this, should he survive. But as I say, he's one of the original cast, so right now he's potentially the group leader, if there is such a thing as a leader, due to Zeph being too flighty, which he is, and he has the sealed parchment with the hit list. Okay, so what is the hit list? The hit list is actually a list of major NPCs that are named in the adventure that the council want taking out. Now, Vanifer is still the prophet of the cult of Flame. The council is still in debate, and the council aren't 100% agreed upon what the character should do if and when they get Vanifer backed into a corner. All of his sort of main henchmen, they can be killed. But though Vanifer's insider knowledge is kind of key to the council, his intel on the remaining cults and the actual plans of the prophets, and by definition the princes themselves, well, he knows a lot. So just killing Vanifer is not necessarily an option that they have to them. And this parchment that Bakar has is really going to underscore that. You can't just kill Vanifer. You've got to incarcerate him. Corbin Sounds Good Macbeth is a new character, a Goliath, that actually Corbin may have had past dealings with Azatuli's tribe. Now, one of the scenes that I have planned so that the characters can get to know each other is around the campfire scene. So one of they've got 2 to 3 days of arbitrarily decided they're going to have 2 to 3 days travel down the Sumber Hill mountainside down some fairly rugged passage, because they're entering the temple through the Underdark. They know through intel that's been passed to them previously, they know that Cult of Elemental Flame have a shaky alliance with the Drow of the Underdark, and scouts sent out over the last couple of 10 days by the council have determined that there is a cave entrance that leads to the Underdark and connects with the Drow outpost that connects with the Temple of Elemental Flame. So Corbin has possibly had past dealings with Azatuli's tribe. Zeph is the other original character. Zeph is a pirate, a womanizer, a rogue, and gets himself into a lot of trouble. He is a Ergenazi. If Zeph makes a plan, you can be rest assured that it falls apart terribly, which is massively helped by the fact that the player's ability to consistently roll the lowest dice rolls possible is astounding. How well this happens. He is literally a bit of an airhead, as you might expect. He's probably the only character who's going into the temple because he's got nothing better to do. His motivations are probably of the least amount of merit out of the cast of characters that we've got going on here. So I'm going to just pop that down. He has nowhere else to go. Possibly connect more with his Genazi origin. Zeph put a couple of levels of Warlock into his character, and that stems from, in a previous encounter, having his arm torn off and replaced with this like crystalline arm. Who is the Warlock patron? How does it connect with the crystalline arm? Jeffrey Azriel is another one of the new characters. This player likes inter-character relationships. So Jeffrey heard of the original cast of characters, or should I say, heard of the original crew of the Silver Crow, which is the ship that Zeph was first mate on to Captain Tor. Now, Captain Tor, the Silver Crow, played a huge part in our early sessions of the Princes of the Apocalypse and became a much loved element within the group. And the Silver Crow is going to make an appearance in a different campaign quite soon. Jeffrey Azriel is desperately fascinated by tales of the rogue and pirate Zeph Fasriel and the escapades of the Silver Crow, and has spent a reasonable amount of time following in the footsteps of Zeph Fasriel, which has eventually brought him to the location of Scarlet Moon Hall. Now, unfortunately, he fell foul of what transpired at Scarlet Moon Hall, but he's managed to engineer his placement within this team that are going to go and assault the Temple of Elemental Flame, because he wants to become Zeph's first mate, but he knows that Zeph no longer has a ship. The Silver Crow is long since gone, so he's hell bent on finding Zeph a ship that he can present to Zeph and become the golden child of Zeph. But he's really innocent. He's got no concept of the horrors of the world, and therefore has absolutely no comprehension of the danger he's putting himself in now as he follows Zeph into the Temple of Eternal Flame, which is a fun concept. Mir Kondrasar. Now, the player has written a background which ties very directly into the events that transpired at the top of Scarlet Moon Hall. So basically, Eliza Dryflagon's Wicca ritual included having this huge Wicca effigy that was stuffed with living druids and rangers. The Wicca ritual was going to end in a huge evisceration, consumption, burning of these druids to fuel a ritual that would open the portal, kind of snatch the thunder away from Vanifer. So that's what Eliza Dryflagon was trying to do, and this ritual was going to do that. It was going to be the final sacrifice that would open that portal and move her position of power to above that of Vanifer, the current prophet. Mir Kondrasar is a dragon-born guardian and protector of a family of druids that were present during the violence of that night. And they lost their lives, or to Mir's understanding, they lost their lives. And so she is in pursuit. She's going after the cultists that killed those in her protection. So yeah, kind of like an honor system where she's lost faith within her guild because those that she was set to protect lost their lives on her watch. And she needs to rectify her position within the guild. So, notable NPCs, we've got 2 defected Howling Hatred cultists that are joining the group. Stepan Ril, Saruki. I'm not going to get into their agendas right now, but that is where I would be putting just a little comment about what their agenda might be. I suppose realistically both have the same agenda right now, to gain trust and comradeship with the party members. At present, my intention is not that they are going to turn out to be backstabbers, but they are going to present the pressures of a moral dilemma. They're going to want different outcomes to this than possibly some of the party members. But I'll dig into them a little bit more later. There is another notable NPC, and that is Anya. So Anya harks back quite a while ago, and is the daughter of families that were saved from Feathergale's spy out. No, possibly even barged right in. Anya became sort of enthralled by Bakar. She sort of looked up to him and his ability to solve his problems by smashing them into a bloody pulp, effectively. I want to bring her back in because she's a good pressure point. She gives the character something else to think of because she's only young. She's a little bit impulsive, so she's a complication. She's potentially tipping over the edge into somebody who's going to go on down the dark side. And I would like to see how that dynamic and her story plays out in this campaign. She is following the group, but will appear in trouble trying to follow them into the cave. So I've covered all of the characters. I need to build on the travel day, discussing the council parchment, an initial encounter, relatively easy, but with in my mind I've got winter wolves, and that's because Haon the Destroyer, who's probably in one of the strongest positions right now, because he has dominance above ground as well as underground. Haon the Destroyer is sort of flexing his muscles across the Somber Hills. Haon the Destroyer is a ice titan. He has the Ring of Winter, and he's kind of testing out how strong it actually is. The current winter in the realms is harsher than usual, and that's down to Haon the Destroyer actually having the Ring of Winter. The Winter Wolves. So right now I'm on A5E's site. I have the Monstrous Menagerie. Okay, here we go. The A5E Monster Manual. Using the Lazy Encounter benchmark, add up all of the character levels. There are 6 level 8 characters, 48 levels, which under the Lazy Encounter benchmark means I divide that by half. So 24 is the actual deadly encounter level. according to Mike's calculations. So 24 of these would be 8 winter wolves. It's kind of a bigger encounter than I really want, but I do want a pack of wolves, and I do want them to have the opportunity to dig into their character sheet for a couple of rounds. So I'm thinking maybe 5 or 6 winter wolves would be pretty good. What are they getting? They're getting an average attack, an average of 11 points of damage a round, with probably every other round maybe another 18. So across the 2, maybe 3 rounds, they're going to deliver about 36, 46, about 50-ish points of damage. They're not going to be too tough to kill. 67 hit points, you know, it's going to take even from, you know, the more pokey weapons that they've got, it's going to take a couple of hits to put one of these guys down. So that's not too bad. They've got pack tactics as well, so they're going to have advantage for the majority of the combat. They're probably in the region of dishing out over the course of 2 rounds about 300 points of damage with 6 winter wolves. I really don't think that 300 potential points of hit point damage over the course of 2 rounds is going to be too problematic, especially being as they are actually going to be travelling for 2 to 3 days. So they're going to get a rest again before they do anything else. It really is only an encounter. Get them looking at their character sheets, get them using some stuff. My thinking is I'm going to do some prompt cards just to get the players thinking about what they could be discussing conversationally, not plot line, just conversationally within the context of being around a campfire. For example, Mia might be curious, you know, the Dragonborn element might be curious about the crystalline arm of Zeph. So I might put that as a little prompt on a prompt card, which I'll give to the player. And so I'm thinking of doing some prompt cards that have maybe 3, possibly 4 conversational prompts that could be pursued, and encourage the players to work around those. Not necessarily talk about all of the points, because again that would be quite a long discussion possibly if it fell into a good role play, but I think it'll be good to get the characters thinking outside of their character sheets. So here I have my daily journal. One of my tricks to help me when I'm planning campaigns, like most DMs, we think about our games all day long, every day. What I have here at the back of my journal are a series of tabbed inserts that are directed to each game that I run. But right now, what I've got, you can see this. So when I have a brief moment, I hear something in a book, something on the news, or whatever, you know, something just happening out in the world, and I get this inspiration, I grab my pen, my post-it note, and I stick it into the relevant section for the game that it's been inspired for, and then I take this collection of post-it notes every week, and I transfer what I've got here into the big, like one of the big journals you've seen there. Each one of those journals for each game that I run. So, looking down these scenes, where are the scouts? So, according to Barrigo, the party should meet a scout party here at the cave entrance. The scouts are not here. They are intended to meet, and this is in that parchment that I'm talking about, they are intended to meet scout party who went in to try and map the temple. And the parchment indicates that they will be meeting the scouts at the cave entrance. The scouts are not there. Now, it's going to be up to the characters whether they decide to make camp, wait, or whatever, but certainly after 2 to 3 days, those scouts are not going to have arrived on the scene, and they're going to have to make the decision to enter the caves at the Underdark and find the Drow Gate without much more help, really. So, cave entry. Cave entrance itself, it's a speleotherm. I quite like this little Wikipedia legend for a cave structure. This isn't what the cave entrance looks like necessarily, but it gives me some names I can use, and if I want to expand on any of the descriptions. So I'm going to put walkways. Elevated walkways. So in the map, they're going to there's going to be 2 levels of descent. Level 1 will be the Paths of the Dead. Okay, Paths of the Dead. Paths of the Dead. I wanted this. This is going to be the biggie. This is the big encounter. This is where they're really going to get hurt, because it's going to be an army of wraiths, the dead from a battle between the Drow. Sahugin of the Black Sea worship the vast tentacled beast that lives in its waters. Army of Wraiths, dead. They're dead from a battle between the Drow and the Sahugin. Old ancient battle. There will be undead Drow and there will be undead Sahugin, and they will all be basically wraiths. I might throw in something else just to shake it up a little bit. So I'm going to need wraiths. Wraith Lord. Okay, all right, let's just have a quick look at the Wraith Lord. Challenge rating 13, 171 hit points. I'm not a big fan of the frightened status, and I know I'm playing around with some alternative statuses, so I might just tweak that a little bit, throw something else instead. I don't want to lock one of the characters down, basically. While in Sunlight or Bright Light cast by a fire, the Wraith Lord has disadvantage, gets multi-attack. It can use a Paralysing Terror, and then it can use its life drain twice, and then can make a greatsword attack. So effectively 4 attacks in a round. Life drain, DC 18 Constitution. On a failure, the creature will take 5d6 necrotic damage or 7d6 necrotic damage if it is frightened or surprised, and its hit point maximum is reduced by an amount equal to the damage taken. Now that could be problematic for them because it might be a while before they get to have a long rest. Plus 10 to hit with the greatsword, hitting for either 12 or 17 depending. Plus poison damage. Can't regain hit points from this type of poison. And if it dies whilst poisoned in this manner, it rises as a wraith. That's pretty important. And it gets to do a paralysing terror. Targets a frightened creature within 60 feet, forcing it to make a DC 18 saving throw. On a failure, the target is paralysed for 1 minute. Again, I think I would tweak that because, again, locking. Let's just have a look, see what Keith Amon, the monsters know what they're doing. Let's have a look, see what he says about wraiths. I dip into this book from time to time because I do find it, I'm not massively intelligent, and so having trying to play the part of somebody that is intelligent is not always the easiest. Here we go. 275 wraiths. Extra powerful spectres possessing the same resistances and immunities. All their ability scores are higher, making them above average in everything except strength. but most notably in dexterity, constitution, and wisdom, the big three of saving throws. These traits, plus a sizable wodge of hit points and a wicked fast 60-foot flying speed, make them terrifying foes. Wraiths want to murder everyone and everything, so they're not super concerned with who dies first. However, wraiths have just enough intelligence and wisdom to choose their targets, and they choose on the basis of goodness. A wraith's compulsion is malice, and the purer the heart, the more they want to see it stop beating. They fly in, lock onto the greatest paragon of goodness in the party, and start life draining. Multiple wraiths will probably all be drawn to the same target. Now, I've got 6 level 8 characters. So they're gonna hold their own for a while, but they are going to have to act pretty, they're not going to be able to hold back on some of their juicy stuff. They're gonna have to burn it up, and that's the whole point of this encounter, is to give them something that is going to kill them. Now, one of the important things to note here is this particular encounter is going to be quite challenging because there are no clerics in this party. So facing off against powerful undead without a cleric is pretty hardcore. I am planning to drop in some magic that's going to give them a little bit of an edge over undead. So they'll have that, but it may be one-shot items. So unlike spectres, even as they switch their attacks to less dangerous opponents, they don't forget who's got the shiny, burny weapons that hurt them, nor do they forgive. If at any time one or more wraiths are looking for a new target, their attention will immediately turn back to Bernie McRighteous face. So there is a small story element to the Paths of the Dead, a thing I'm calling the tolling of the bell. I have a big dark subplot that is only now just starting to send out its little ripples across all of the games that I'm running, all of the D&D games. Here is an opportunity for me to show one of those little ripples, one of those little threads that doesn't mean anything at the moment. And that is that they are going to hear a bell tolling. And when that happens, the wraiths will cease their attack and rise up and away, seemingly to the cave entrance. I will play by ear as to at what point, at what time that actually happens in the combat. The conclusion encounter for session 1 brings them to the Bridge of Doom, which I need to come up with a name. Okay, one of the things I do know is that the Bridge of Doom spans a vast underdark sea. I do know that they will see a vast black tentacle rise out of the dark waters. So they know for sure that they don't want to be going into that water. So any idea of sort of climbing down, swimming, whatever, that needs to really be a problem for them. They need to know that is not an option. Do I need to know what the vast creature is that's in the Black Sea? I don't think I do. If it becomes a thing, I will. So yeah, if it becomes a thing, I will use my copy of Forge of Foes. I may just sit down with this and throw something together very, very quickly, just to drop in there in case I need the Bridge of Doom. It's going to be based somewhat on the bridge Khazad-dûm, with the falling rock and whatever. But what they're going to encounter toward the end of their encounter here with the Bridge of Doom is the sole 2 surviving scouts who are going to be running toward them on this bridge. There's going to be some drow in pursuit. I have this image in my mind that drow are going to be riding giant bats. It's going to be a big open cavern on a body of water with a bridge. As the cast of characters become aware of the sort of this approaching encounter, one of those scouts is going to die. It's going to be up to them. Now, they're going to be pretty beaten by this point because of some of the other scenes that are going to take place. But that surviving scout has that critical piece of information. It's going to map out parts of the Underdark that they need to focus on, as well as some areas that the scouts have been able to figure out. So they're going to get a better idea of the lay of the land. And in theory, where the Drow Gate accesses the temple itself. But if one of those drow escape, this is going to change the dynamic of the Drow Gate, because then those Drow scouts are going to be able to return to the Drow Gate and raise the alarm, make the Drow aware that people are coming. So I am going to use one of my other resources. Back in probably somewhere between AD and D in 3.5, I created a folder full of random tables. The place where I worked was going down the Swanee, shall we say. I had ample time on my hands, and I created a whole bunch of tables that look like that. Probably the better part of 20 years ago, that folder of tables disappeared. I don't know where it went. And then a year or so back, one of my players, who I still game with, said, "Guess what I found in my attic?" And it was these tables. So I've been taking my scavenged 5th edition tables and adding my old AD&D stroke 3.5 random tables into a new random tables book. This is my random tables generator, and I've pulled this together from all sorts of sources, from photocopying, from books that I've got back here, from lists that appear on the D100 lists Reddit, to lists I've created myself, all sorts of sources. So what I'm flicking through for is to find my NPC lists. Okay, NPC generator document. Again, this has been put together from a variety of sources. Now, so I want a name for the scout. I am going to pick Hilda. Yeah, we're going to have Hilda. Hilda Bassam. She is the barely surviving scout. So she'll be in the sort of the final scene. So I'm just going to add a couple of bits here. So the Bridge of Doom, think Khazad-dûm. So Hilda Bassam, pursued by giant bat riding Drow Scouts Rangers. Again, I don't want this encounter to be too difficult. I want it to drain enough resource so that they're running a bit on fumes for what they've got left to do, so that they're on fumes until they find a safe space, and that probably won't be until the end of the following session. Finding a place where they can hole up and recoup a little bit, because they're going to have gone through the ringer by the time they get to that point. So there we go, guys. That is the first session prep wrapped up. Sadly, for some reason, the audio of the couple of sections that I didn't do, treasure, secrets and clues, the audio just for some reason didn't record. So I had to scrap putting that into this episode. However, you should see that going forward and see some of my methodology behind that as well. Hopefully a bit more on the terrain as well. This first session prep was a bit of a sort of a scattershot of what may or may not happen. It's a little bit railroady because I want to get them to a certain point before they're kind of unleashed into the Underdark. I want to set up all of the kind of the moments that they need. But yeah, we'll see how the game goes. And in in episode 2 of this series, I will do a little bit of recap of what actually happened in the coming game. If you like this kind of content, obviously, please like and subscribe. If you want to ask any questions about my prep, then chuck those questions down in the doobly bits below. And yeah, so thanks guys. I will see you very soon in the in a video of some description. Take care. Bye.